Everyone, I'm just back from Peru where I was using for the first time on my travels an all mirrorless kit. Now I want to talk you through my experiences with it, talk specifically about the Sony A7s that I was using, and then also about the state of play with mirrorless overall.
Hi folks, please jump over to mattgranger.com. You can scroll down and sign up to the mailing list. It's all free. Get up to date with what's going on. You can go up the top here and see all the different events I'm holding around the world, plus EOIs for places I'm considering going if you'd like me to come to your town. And check out the video series, all of my different complete download series for your entertainment.
So first things first, I have done, tests on a lot of the top mirrorless cameras out there. I get a good opportunity to play with a lot of stuff. In fact, in New York, I did a 5-way series in each of the boroughs of New York, going through and testing what at the time I felt were the top 5 mirrorless cameras on the market. So in that one, I also used the Sony A7R. Look, as I went through it and looked at all the different offerings on the market, and of course all of this is particular to the way I work, so shooting stills for books and then doing video for YouTube and for download series, there was a few things that came out to me. It was the Fujis, then also Panasonic, and then Sony. So what I loved about them, the Fuji X-T1 I think is outstanding. It's got a fantastic viewfinder. I love the styling. I love the colors you're getting from it. And it's just really enjoyable to actually use, and their primes are great quality. The Panasonic, it's the GH4 for me. I think it's quite ugly, but incredibly functional. You look at it and it doesn't look like a masterpiece, but to use it, the dials are in all the right places. It's got 4K that records internally, and then the video is also, the stills are surprisingly good, and so is the rear screen. It's a real user's camera, and I was really, really impressed by that one. And then Sony, and I have to say of all of them, Sony kind of edges ahead because to me it's the most complete system that's out there. So you've got the A7 and now the A7 II, which is kind of the middle of the road. Then you've got the A7R, higher resolution, really aimed at high quality stills. And then the A7S, which is focused on low light performance, lower resolution and video. Two factors that really give extra points to Sony in my mind are the fact being full frame, I can use all my full frame lenses and keep their field of view without needing to buy expensive Metabones adapters or any of that stuff. I keep the ratio, the field of view that my lens originally had. And the fact that Zeiss makes autofocus lenses for Sony cameras for me is a big plus. I'm a huge Zeiss fan. I recently did the Batiste 85 review, and I just love their stuff. So that did weigh into it as well. So look, I got the A7R on loan from Zeiss because they sent me the Batiste to test out, and I said, I don't own any Sony, could you send me a camera? They did. And then I contacted Sony Australia to ask to loan the A7S and the 24-70 f4. So that was my basic kit, the 2 cameras, the Batiste and the 25 Batiste. That's what I shot most of my time in Peru with. So let's just say what I liked, what was okay, and what I didn't love. First of all, the stuff I liked. I loved the portability of the whole system. I'm a big rough and tumble type guy. I really don't complain at carrying full-size cameras and stuff. And, I always had in my mind that, well, the advantage of mirrorless is that the smaller sensor also means you get smaller lenses. But you do also get smaller lenses using full frame mirrorless than you do on a DSLR. Just the flange distance is different. The lens can be manufactured differently. So that's the Zeiss 85 1.8 and that's the Zeiss Otis 1.4 for full frame DSLR. So that's a bit of an extreme, but then also there's the Nikon. So it is bigger, rounder, longer, heavier in every regard, and this one has stabilization built in, which is great because the body didn't. I also love the fact that the image quality is right up there. It's got the same sensor in it as the D800, and the image quality is right up there as long as your technique is good. I also love the fact that it's so interchangeable. It really is a system. So if I was carrying a DSLR in one of these, then half my lenses only work on one, or I need an adapter. Having all Sony A bodies on that trip, and then I could grab any combo and it's all going to work together. The batteries are interchangeable, the cards are interchangeable. That's really handy to not need to be taking a bunch of different chargers and types of cards along. I found that helpful. And for me, the ergonomics are just fine. It's one of the chunkier grips out there, so I didn't find it difficult to use with big hands. The screen, I kind of like the articulating thing, but I would like it, if they're going to include that, to have more of a range of movement in there. Other things that were just okay for me, I'm still not a huge fan of EVF. The Fuji X-T1's the best one I've tested, but it's okay. I didn't find it terribly laggy. I did adjust to it and I wasn't missing shots, but I still do prefer the real viewfinder on my cameras. The battery was okay. People go on about the Sony A7s as being terrible. I didn't find them that bad. You know, this is a 1080 mAh or AH. I wouldn't have gone over 2 batteries in a day, so for me that wasn't, you know, a really big deal. Other things, the autofocus speed, hey kitty, the autofocus speed is good, but not fast enough to shoot this one running around the studio. It was, I shouldn't say it was good, it was okay, but that's more down to the body, it seems, and to check that, I'm actually getting in the A7 II tomorrow to check it out and compare and see how it goes. Please don't chew my mic cable, sweetheart. No. Another thing, and this has all been quite well documented by other people, the shutter on the A7R is like a friggin' barn door opening and closing. You know, for me, I don't care too much about the, you know, that it's not discreet. It's more that it's flapping around, and there is tests out there showing that it does introduce some blur into your shots. It's also not cheap, and whilst the A7S is focused on video and it does put out great content, the 4K you can only do with an external recorder, and they cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on top of what's already a really expensive camera. It really makes the GH4 look like the way to go for video. So I'm sure, as you all know, the A7R II is coming, and it kind of seems like it's killed the A7R and the A7S. There's a couple of things about it. I'm going to run through the features that I'm most excited about that make me consider something like that. But having said that, I've never tested it. I haven't read any test that's, you know, independent who's gone into much detail. Maybe there's some out there. And I like to actually test and see results of gear before I buy it. So I'm definitely not saying that I'm running out to buy this, but the things that make me really interested in it. The stabilization with all of those pixels, if it's a really well integrated stabilization, that could be really fantastic. And with the peaking and stuff, that means that using a simple little adapter, do I have one here? I can put something like my manual focus Zeiss Otis lens on. The camera will meter and everything. It'll give me focus peaking so I can see that I'm in focus, and then this lens is suddenly stabilized because the whole body is. That for me is a big thing. They also have redesigned the shutter completely, so it's meant to be dampened and it's just softer anyway. Should be quieter, should reduce the impact. As I said, this is all kind of off the press release stuff, so I'm just repeating it. I'm not saying it's actually fact, but these are the things that they're promoting that I'm really interested in. It's an all-new sensor as well. I've seen people hypothesizing that the new array for the sensor, because of the shorter path to get to the photo capturing area, the light capturing area, should provide better ISO performance. That may be. This new one does go through to 100 and whatever stupid thousand ISO, but the base, important to note, is still actually 100 to 25,600, no different to the A7R from memory. So we'll wait and see on that. To be honest, I very rarely use my cameras over like 400 or 800 if I can possibly avoid it. So that's not a big thing for me. But the new sensor being new generation of technology, they did so well with this one. All new design, even more megapixels. You know, I'd be hoping that it's going to match or better the 36 megapixel one they had out there before. So all in all, that's really interesting stuff for me. And something I'm going to touch on in another video, they're talking about, or there's even been one demoed, a smart adapter that will let your Canon autofocus lenses autofocus on the Sony bodies. That's amazing, and apparently Nikon's on the way too. That really makes it a tempting little setup. So look, I've also in the past done videos on why mirrorless is not for me, and a lot of those things still stand. I still prefer EVF, I still prefer the bigger overall form factor, and focus is a big thing for me. But as I'm using more and more manual focus lenses, peaking would also be a fantastic thing for me. So it's all about that critical point. You know, people, I must get asked literally every day from people, Do you think mirrorless is going to kill DSLR? Do you think it's going to replace it? I think it'd be fair to say that mirrorless and compacts already outstrip DSLRs in terms of sales, but I don't think that they're just going to die out. You know, there's still people listening to the radio. There's still people listening to records. There are still people listening to CDs, and there's a lot of us using streaming services. So and there's medium format obviously out there as well to throw it into the camera range. So, you know, everything is still out there. I really can't see myself in the next few years abandoning DSLR altogether. I'm so attached to it. But if mirrorless keeps ratcheting up the areas that it has an advantage and narrowing down the areas that someone like me finds a negative, then it's definitely an interesting thing. And if the focus on this improves, the shutter improves, and well, they're the two main things for me, then already this camera would be one that I'd be tempted to add to my bag. Adding to that the new one's going to do 4K video internally, that potentially does two cameras in one for me, and that would be something huge. I did find that a little bit on the trip of, okay, in this situation, I know I'm asking for everything here. You do have a trade-off between ISO performance, high megapixels, you know, that kind of thing out there. And generally the lower resolution, better performing at ISOs, the video cameras. So, you know, I knew that taking the cameras along, but there were times I'm like, oh, I don't know if we're going to be in a place where I can't use flash or adjust the lighting and it may be dark. So let me take the A7S, and then I was shooting with it. And whilst it's a fine camera, there were times where I was like, I really wish I'd shot that on my high resolution camera. So having, you know, a setup, if the A7R II does all of that stuff and the ISO performance is raised a little bit, possibly having two of them in my bag, so I've got one for filming like I am right now and one for shooting, could be fantastic, or even just having the one. So definitely interesting. Mirrorless is definitely going in the right direction. Rather than getting hung up on formats and what's going to win and what's going to lose, really focusing on what's going to do it for you. You know, I've had shoulder injuries and stuff, and I always have weight limit restrictions on my travels. So on the last trip, the lower weight was good when I was recovering from my neurosurgery. It's all just about, is it going to really meet my needs? And there were times where I really missed my DSLR on the trip, and there are other times where I really loved it. So I'll be interested to see where mirrorless goes in the next year or two. Let me know what you're shooting with. Have you gone from or to something? What are you hoping the next generation and the generation after that of DSLR and mirrorless are going to offer? And big question, if you are still shooting DSLR or medium format or film, what would it take for a new camera series like mirrorless? What will it need to be offering in terms of specs, features, price, advantages to make you really consider it? Interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Sorry this one was a little bit rambling. I'll see you soon.